Hey everyone, thank you so much for stopping by today, and if you are new here, welcome. My name is Kim and I'm an elementary school teacher in Yokohama, Japan, and this is another episode of our Teaching in Japan series, specifically directed to those of you that are applying for the JET program and hopefully have already received your notice about passing the first stage and making it to the interview round. I apologize that I'm getting this out probably right as interviews are starting to get out. So hopefully this makes it in time for you, because I have a few tips that possibly and hopefully will help you with your interview stage. So for those of you who don't know me, I did come to Japan on the JET program in the second year that the JET program was created. That was back in 1988, and back then the interview was a lot different than I think it is now. And the questions that I received are probably going to be totally different than what you might get in your interview. The other thing is, I was interviewed by a panel of 3 Japanese nationals, whereas now I think the interviews not only have Japanese nationals, but they also have former JET participants, which I think is great, because who better to know what the JET program entails and what they're looking for and what you might need for the job than some of the former JET participants. As I've said in previous videos, there is no way to know exactly what kind of questions you're going to get, exactly what kind of panel you're going to get, and you could watch all the videos on YouTube or get all the advice from former JETs, and your experience or what you go through might be totally different. So please remember that people are sharing what they've been through or what they see as being good advice. Some of the advice will be very pertinent to your situation, and you might not even experience this at all. I thought I'd cover, since there's already a lot of videos and blogs about possible questions or about things you might need to know, I thought I'd try and cover some of the things that maybe you don't think about in regards to an interview. So let's get right down to some of the tips that I have, and hopefully they can help you along your journey and during this interview process. The first tip, which I think has been said in a lot of videos, but I cannot stress it enough, is punctuality. Japan, if you've ever come to visit here, you know that the trains and the buses and everything run very, very close to the exact time that it's supposed to leave. The other thing is, you're kind of judged by how punctual you are. So if you've got a 10 o'clock appointment, don't show up 1 minute before 10 o'clock, or don't even show up at 10 o'clock and assume that everything is okay. Usually they suggest at least being, at the very minimum, 10 minutes before your actual time. I would recommend, if you can, come a little earlier. You want that time to kind of relax and get ready for your interview, as well as be prepared with any paperwork that you might have. So once you come in and they have this process where you sign in so that they know that you're here, and sometimes that takes a little bit of time, especially if they ask you to show proof of who you are or any kind of documentation. All that needs to be checked out. And if you need to use the restroom, or if you just need to take a few breaths to yourself, you really want to leave as much time as you can, so you're not just rushing in looking like you just stepped out of the bus or the train or wherever to get to your interview. Please allow enough time and be punctual. If for any reason, if there is any circumstance where you cannot possibly help being late, and that I do mean extreme circumstances, please be polite and call. Now, just remember, with the competition being so stiff, don't take that chance. Don't say that, you got stuck in traffic. Allow plenty of time for traffic. Don't say that you got lost, because if it were me, I would actually go to the venue maybe a day before and make sure you know how much time it takes to get from where you're going to the actual interview place, and exactly which way to go, where the room is, so that you know exactly where things are. The second tip is just remember how important first impressions are in Japan. Your interview starts the second you walk into the door of not the interview, but the place where they collect your forms or take attendance. That means the way you're dressed, the way you present yourself, the way you carry yourself, how polite you are, your mannerisms, all that is being assessed by a first impression. So if you're running in, if you're rude to the person that's checking all the papers, if you come in and you've got a cup of coffee in one hand and just your bag in the other, that doesn't always make a good first impression. Things that do make a good first impression in Japan is being neat, having a smile, being polite, and always remembering your manners. Greetings in Japan are super important. So if you're walking in and you see somebody, greet them with a good morning, or remember your pleases and thank yous. It isn't necessary to go the whole route and speak Japanese because it's not a Japanese interview. You are interviewing as a representative of your country, unless you are interviewing for a CIR position where you will, be assessed on your Japanese mannerisms and politeness and all that other stuff. But if you're just applying or interviewing as an ALT, assistant language teacher, please use your English greetings. In one sense, they may even be looking at how you greet people, how clearly you say your greetings. So all of that is taken into consideration the minute you walk through that door. As far as your dress goes, the best advice that I could give you is that Japan does have a very conservative and very professional outlook on how people should be dressed in the business world and even in the teaching world. It's hard to say because sometimes you do want your personality to show through, and maybe you're not used to wearing the traditional black, charcoal gray, or navy blue suits. Maybe in your country you wear something a little bit brighter, or you wear something that maybe shows off your personality a little bit more. But I would say keep it conservative. Make sure it's neat. By neat, I mean, make sure that you've got it dry cleaned and that you've taken your dry clean tag off of the suit. Believe me, I have seen people come in and you see the tag hanging out, and it's not something that they're going to knock you down for, but you just want to make a very good professional impression. There's a lot of YouTube videos and there's a lot of blogs that go into dress code in a little bit more detail, and perhaps those are better because, as I said, I interviewed in 1988 and I'm not quite sure nowadays what the business dress code standard is other than suit and being neat and being clean. So I thought I'd touch on a couple of other things that maybe they don't cover that might be of some help to you. One thing is fragrance. This is in regards to cologne, perfumes, hairspray, lotions. Keep it simple, if nothing at all. And you don't obviously want to go in walking with smelling like sweat or smelling like you've just come out of the workout gym. But Japan is not one for heavy perfumes or strong fragrances, especially in the classrooms or in the teaching settings. You want to keep it very simple. Of course, you do want to be smelling nice, but you don't need to put on the perfumes and the lotions. Another thing, or one of the big reasons for this, is there's a lot of children, there's a lot of people that do have allergies, and their nose can be very sensitive to fragrances that are strong or that they're not used to. I once got not in trouble, but I did get reprimanded once for wearing insect repellent because I didn't want to be bit by the mosquitoes, and apparently it bothered some of the students in the classroom enough to complain, and enough that I was called into the office saying, please do not wear mosquito repellent because it upsets some of the children in the classroom. So I had to wind up getting bit by mosquitoes. The other thing too is if you have If you have tattoos, you've probably heard this before, it's probably better to keep them covered up. That can be a whole nother issue, or a whole nother thing as how people approach if you have a visible tattoo. But I would say if it's somewhere visible, like on your shoulder and you can see it through your shirt or something, maybe cover it up with a cloth or a bandage. If you're wearing, sleeves that come up and you've got like an arm tattoo or something, it's probably safer to cover it up. Just to be on the safe side as a first impression thing. And once again, because there's so much competition, you want to be able to stand out for just being you and not being knocked down for something that's just a visual question mark. The other thing is, some people have asked, especially females, about hairdos and makeup. And once again, this is really hard because you don't really know what they're looking for, and you don't really know how particular they're going to be. Some people may be very strict, or some people may be very open. I would say wear or do the hairstyle or your usual cosmetic face that you normally do. The way I kind of see it is, you don't really want to portray or be somebody that you're not. You want to be, as much as possible, your own self. And if the way you dress or the way you look is going to be a factor, the way I view it is are you really going to be comfortable working somewhere that's going to tell you that you have to change just to meet this job? For me, I'd rather think to myself, maybe this is not the particular job for me if I have to change my hairstyle, the way I look, or do this or do that. Do you know what I'm saying? It's entirely up to how you want to go, but I would say mainly just be neat and be clean. As far as for, men with facial hair, if you've got full beards, if you've got mustaches, if you've got bushy eyebrows, whatever, just keep everything, clean. And I think as long as you make a good first impression and come across as being sincere and professional looking, I don't think any of that will play a factor. Maybe on the news, or maybe on some of the recent news, you've heard the things about glasses and how some workplaces in Japan are saying that glasses are a big no-no. Don't worry about that kind of stuff. Same with false eyelashes. Jewelry, I would say jewelry, keep it simple. You don't want to wear your most flamboyant, dangly, statement earrings or your big bulky jewelry, unless it is a big part of who you are. But usually, just to give you kind of a comparison standard, usually when people interview in Japan, most of the females have long hair tied back in a ponytail. If they do have earrings, they're small studs, nothing dangling, nothing hoopy. And usually makeup is very conservative. Once again, it is hard to say because some people, right, you can be wearing a lot of makeup, but look very natural. So use your best judgment, and just remember that, right, there is kind of perhaps a certain standard, and if you want to go look at different blogs or vlogs to see what some people suggest, go ahead. And my personal advice is, just be yourself, and if your appearance, if that's what's going to make or break the deal, is this really the position that you want? I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say that I feel that the JET program does hire people of all shapes, sizes, backgrounds, looks, hairstyles, skin colors, makeup stuff, so it is pretty diverse. Maybe in certain areas they are looking more for this type of ALT, and maybe in another area they're looking more for this type. So I think once you assemble, or once you go to the orientations or some of the get-togethers, you see people of all different shapes, sizes, weights, heights, ethnic backgrounds, hairstyles, skin colors, eye colors, cosmetic additions, all different types of people. And I think usually, right, when you come to an interview, everybody sort of looks a certain way, and then when you go and you see everybody, you realize, wow, there is a lot of diversity, and there are people of all different types here. So I would say just be yourself. Once again, it's simple advice, but that's my recommendation. Another thing that perhaps I would say is a huge factor during your interview is not so much your answers to the questions or the actual questions themselves, but more so how you answer the questions. Do you just start rambling on and on and on and on, just start talking away? Do you think about your answer? How clearly do you enunciate? What type of words do you use? How easy are you to understand? And you'll find, as I think after working in Japan for some time, people that usually are at interviews, especially in your own language, you tend to speak at a certain pace. But if you can kind of slow your pace down and remember that your interview panel may not all be native speakers and their level of English communication might be varied, or they might be coming from a different country and are not used to maybe the slang terms that you use or different ways you might pronounce things. If you can articulate as clearly as you can and speak as calmly as you can, I think that's a big plus factor. As far as voice volume, you don't want to be like a little whisper, and you don't want to mumble. You don't want to mumble your words, which is easy to do, because I know for me personally, when I get nervous or sometimes when I'm speaking in front of a camera just like this, I tend to sometimes stutter my words or slur my words together, and it's hard because you're nervous. But one of the big things you'll be doing on your job, especially as an ALT, is communicating in front of a classroom of anywhere from a small group to a large group of students. You may be giving a speech in front of your whole school, in front of students, teachers, your colleagues, other JET participants. And if it's hard to understand you, or if when you're speaking you don't sound like you have a lot of confidence in what you're saying, or if you're just sort of rambling on and not getting to the point, those may be factors that might work against you. Remember, you're an assistant language teacher, and communication is a big part of your job. Sometimes, I don't know whether or not it will happen to you on the JET interview because time is so important, but I have interviewed at other companies where I've been asked to read a storybook. And if you've ever read storybooks to young children, you know that you have to sometimes change up your voices, or you have to enunciate certain words, or you have to make the story flow or be exciting. So the best way to probably get ready for this is to practice. Use your iPhone, use your camera, and videotape yourself. Use the mirror. Look and see how you look as you're speaking. Do you use a lot of gestures? Do you use a lot of eye contact? How natural are you when you're speaking? How is your body language? I know for me personally, I'm a body person. Sometimes when I'm excited about something, I do move forward. I'm not stiff, because I think stiff sometimes it's just not a part of me, but when you're nervous, sometimes you do tend to get stiff. And I think the more relaxed you are and the more confident you are, the more likely you are to maybe move forward or make that eye contact with somebody as you're speaking. And you want them to be able to understand the passion in your voice and how you're speaking. So even if your answer is maybe not, the best answer, maybe how you deliver your answer will be more bonus points and more pluses for you in getting the position or passing it to the next level. Okay? The other thing is, as you're speaking, don't worry about always having to, be speaking. If you need time to think and pause and then come up with your answer, that's entirely okay. The other thing is kind of know how to put closure on your answer so that you don't have to get cut off. I think that's a tendency that we all do when we're asked a question. We want to make sure that we get our answer communicated across, and so sometimes we speak on and on. And to be honest, I did not get any questions about teaching. Perhaps I figure that maybe because they knew I was an elementary school teacher, they knew that I did have the background. If you're coming from a different degree or a different experience, they might ask you more teaching-related questions. The one thing I will say is your statement of purpose is so important. So please make sure you understand why you wrote the statement of purpose that you did, be able to explain it, be able to be passionate about it, because that's one of the things that, they have in front of them and that you should probably have in here, but, make sure you can reference it. Whatever your answers are, you can maybe use it to back up the statement that you put, but it is very important. So please remember to look over whatever you put on your application and know the reasons why you want to come to Japan and what you hope to accomplish and all those other things that we talked about in previous videos about your reasons for wanting to be on the JET program. And just as important as first impressions are, final impressions are equally as important. That means thanking each member on the panel, either as a group or personally. It means, usually, right, standing up, saying what a pleasure it was, or, thank you so much for your time. And even when you're leaving, it's usually like when you go, you can do a final bow. Make sure you don't forget anything. I have a funny story about a friend of mine that interviewed for a position at a place I was working at. He was so nervous. He thanked everybody, went outside, was getting his coat, and took my coat instead. So he walked off with my coat. Luckily, he got the job, because otherwise I would have had to, go run and chase after him. He did bring the coat back, but he did say he was so nervous, he just grabbed the first black coat that he saw and put it on and realized it wasn't his. So make sure when you leave, make sure you thank the front desk people, anybody that's, that was doing the collecting. It does matter. Even if you, when you come out, keep it together. I know sometimes when you finish an interview, the first thing you want to do is just breathe a sigh of relief, or maybe you feel like crying, or you're upset, or whatever. Don't let anybody in that waiting room see that. Walk out with confidence. The people that are collecting their names, you never know whether or not they have any input. I have no idea, but you never know if they might see something. And if they see that you're swearing or upset or you're crying, they may think later on to tell the people, wow, that person there, they came out and they were just really upset. Or, oh, that person there just immediately got on their cell phone and just started talking, right? All those kind of things. Speaking of cell phones, make sure you have yours turned off, right? Make sure you have all that stuff put away. Keep it in your bag. I would say don't even have it sticking out. Do whatever you can to make sure that there are no other distractions. So say your goodbye, say your thank yous, walk out the door, walk past, and then breathe a sigh of relief and treat yourself to something because you did it. Any interview, after you finish it, no matter how, good, bad, successful, unsuccessful you were, it was something that you did and you accomplished and you went through with. And that's a big step. And whether or not you get the position, you can chalk that up to experience. And if if you get favorable results, yay! But if for some reason, it didn't work out, don't immediately blame yourself or don't be really hard on yourself. Just remember the competition is really stiff and you have 10 minutes or 20 minutes or however long the set time is to show them who you are and show them why you would be a good person to be in this position. So, right after you finish, just breathe a sigh of relief and pat yourself on the back because you did finish it. Okay, so that being said, I'm sending you lots of positive energy, wishing you the best of luck for those of you that are interviewing on the 2020 JET program, or any JET program or language program or teaching program in the future. You can do it. Use every positive, negative experience as a step forward to your ultimate goal or your dream. And just remember that everybody is nervous. Everybody goes through this usually at any job, and take it in stride, and hopefully you'll get the results that you are hoping for. If you have any questions or if you have anything you'd like to share, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'm going to keep continuing the series about teaching in Japan, not only on JET, but just in general. So if you are interested in this type of content, or even just seeing the other things that I post about life in Japan and just things that we have here, please consider subscribing, and hopefully I will hear good news from you. Good luck again, and thank you so much for your support and for stopping by. Good luck.